about 18 years now, and it's my great pleasure to be moderating our last panel of the day today. And before I introduce our great lineup of speakers here, I just wanted to set the stage a little bit for our conversation today. So 25 years ago, we produced our public legal education and information primarily through printed publications, by telephone, and through in-person workshops, and we still do that today. Many people do learn best by reading a brochure, by hearing someone explain something to them in person, or maybe even participate in a scenario role play or a mock hearing. Digital is not always the best approach, but public legal education providers have a much more expansive toolkit to draw upon given our current digital environment. We can create and share public legal education and information here in Canada through a variety of ways, and they're responsive to the personal capabilities and situations of users. We're also able to share our information more widely. Organizations that provide public legal education information do so in a wide array of user-centered resources and tools that assist people in a few different manners. Our plea providers offer easy-to-navigate plain language guides in multiple languages that are downloadable from websites. They offer step-by-step online content that addresses common legal problems. We provide online videos that explain legal issues or legal processes. We offer digital live chat, webinars to support people with a particular legal issue or problem, digital tools that help people draft letters in legal disputes, easy-to-use apps that help users prepare legal documents like personal directives, or engage young people in role-playing on how someone might navigate common legal problems. We provide guided interviews that help users complete court forms and other legal documents. And we now have generative AI chatbots that generate answers to legal questions by drawing upon a vast library of curated plea content. Humans were, of course, involved in the development of the content and the creation of these tools. And some of these tools do continue to rely on humans for their ongoing operations. So for example, the answers generated by People's Legal Beagle are reviewed by lawyers at People's Law School. And human staff the live chat line Ask Jess at Jess's Education Society in BC. As we planned this last conference session, we struggled to identify a single theme or trend that would capture the range of work being done in the digital space. Instead, we selected 3 presenters who are doing some really good thinking, questioning, and developing of the digital PLEI space. So first, we're going to hear from John Mayer. John is the Executive Director of the Center for Computer Assisted Legal Instruction, or CALI. Thanks for the wave, John. CALI is a nonprofit consortium of U.S. law schools incorporated in 1982 to develop tools and content for legal education. CALI is the developer of the open source project A to J Author, used by over 8 million people to fill out court forms. John has a background in computer science from Northwestern University and the Illinois Institute of Technology, and he's been at CALI since 1994. John is going to talk to us about guided interviews and how nonprofit organizations in the US and Canada are using them to support people who may be taking a step in the legal process on their own or with the support of a community helper, friend, or family member. I'm actually going to go through and introduce all 3 speakers, and then we'll go by one by one, if you don't mind. Next, we're going to hear from Nora Berg. Nora is the Director of BC Programs at Justice Education Society of BC. She oversees a range of programs that help British Columbians understand their legal rights. Nora graduated from UBC Law and has focused her legal career on improving access to justice. She will speak about how the team at Justice Education Society has wrestled with the challenges and opportunities faced by public legal education providers given the public's growing use of generative AI. And last but certainly not least, we will hear from Sarah Maurer from Innovation for Justice in the U.S. Sarah is an award-winning technologist, researcher, designer, and educator whose work centers on social impact technology and justice system innovation. She has more than 15 years of experience developing human-centered, trauma-informed solutions for government, courts, hospitals, universities, startups, and legal service providers. Sarah's going to discuss how to integrate ethical design thinking into the development of community-responsive legal tech tools. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of our presenters to give about a 6 to 7 minute presentation, and then we're going to follow up with a series of questions and throw it open to the rest of the group for the remainder of the session. Over to you, John.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I was trying to say that I'm used to giving this presentation over Teams or Zoom, so I wanted to give you a little bit of what that felt like. So in 1983, a friend of mine was working for a nonprofit in Chicago that was working on the redlining problem, where banks wouldn't give loans in certain neighborhoods. And they had a gigantic database for them, 30,000, in which they would send newsletters out once a month. Like once a quarter. And every time they had to print the mailing list, it was all hands. Everybody came in and sat there and wrote out all the addresses on the labels and things like that, or typed, or whatever it was. It took them a solid week to get a 20,000 quantity newsletter out. They got a computer, a PC donated, a Kpro 10. Anybody know what a Kpro is? Oh man, I am old. Not even a PC compatible, but anyhow, and they didn't know what to do with it. And my friend who worked there said, well, my friend's a computer dude. So I go in there, long story short, I programmed up them a database to print it out. On Friday night, I set it to print, and I unrolled my sleeping bag, and about 9 o'clock the next morning, 12 hours later, 20,000 labels had printed out. But they were amazed that I could do this magic with this computer. And I loved the work they were doing. And then I went off and got a real job and forgot about it. That's not true. I worked for them for a couple of years. But since that point, I thought, man, technology in the service of justice or in the service of public good, I wonder if there's a career in that. Anyhow, long story short, in 2000, I was working at Cali, and they basically said, hey, you could take a year off and do something and come up with some cool ideas. And I said, well, I want to work on this access to justice problem. And that word was new in people's minds in 2000, although it's really not that new. We've had this problem for a long time. And we came up with this idea of A to J author. So what is A to J author? Let's hit the next button. So it's a tool for capturing the experience. This is my new definition. A tool for capturing the experience of a legal professional or lawyer in a narrow area for solving a legal task. Notice I don't say software or anything like that. We wanted to get out of the minds of experienced subject matter experts how you would navigate a particular problem in the law. All right? So it might result in filling out a form. It might result in creating a short letter or a pleading or a response. It might be a checklist or a customized advice, wrong word, guidance. It might be intake, and intake is complicated, right? You got to ask lots of questions before you can get to the point. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like something we could write, but there were challenges for it, right? What we wanted to do, and this is my also new definition, is we wanted to create a cognitive exoskeleton for self-represented litigants, or LIPs. I heard this term a few years back. Litigants in persons, that's what that means, when a lawyer is not feasibly available. So a cognitive exoskeleton implies a couple of things, right? One of them is it helps you do the thinking, but also an exoskeleton kind of confines you, it constrains you so that you don't make a mistake, all right? So we had two big challenges. One, we needed to make this easy to learn for subject matter experts. In other words, I didn't want to have to teach lawyers how to program. Now, today, lots of lawyers are programming, but in 2000, it was a tougher, it was a much, much, much tougher sell. Plus, and we didn't have, and programmers are too expensive. We couldn't put them at the elbows of lawyers every time they wanted to automate another form. There were thousands of forms possible to be automated, right? And we also needed a very good interface for self-represented litigants because they presented their own challenges, right? They're not familiar with computers, although today more people or everybody's has at least a smartphone. In the US, English might have been their second language, and so they brought their grandchildren along to translate for them. They may not have finished high school, so got to keep the language plain, as they say, plain language, right? They might be poor, they might be rural, but they don't have what we would say. They don't have a lawyer either in the neighborhood or in the family or in the community. You know, not even anybody they could ask any questions about. They're in a hurry because they just got a summons or something like that, and they're super stressed out because the John Law is coming down on their case. And we wanted to imagine those persona when we were designing an interface that would overcome those issues, right? From the author side, we wanted them to be able to code this, but without a programmer present. We wanted them to be able to start with small project and then maybe grow into this. We wanted then, whatever they did, to be able to scale nearly infinitely. So automate a form and then make it available 24/7, 365. And even better, if there was a community of people doing this, if you did the expungement form in Oklahoma, then maybe the guys in Arkansas will say, well, we're pretty close to you. We'll start with yours and only have to make small changes. So it would be really easy to snowball this into lots of other things. And that's what we did with A to J Author. Cali is a really small operation. We're only 9 people, but we're all about computer-assisted legal instruction. So why are we doing this access to justice thing? Well, in 2000, I took that sabbatical, and I spent a week sitting in courtrooms watching self-represented litigants bumble and stumble their way through the hellscape that it is the American justice system. And from that, a book was written. I contributed to it with hundreds of ideas on how to improve things. And by the way, very few of them, or a few of them have been implemented since then. It's not a great book. It's written in design speak. But out of that, we thought, you know, people seem to bump into forms a lot. And forms are the language that courts want to talk in. They don't want to hear your story. You know, the bad ones don't. They just want you to fill out the form so that they can evaluate. The form becomes the communication, not the client in front of them, at least in high volume sort of stuff, right? I'm not talking about litigation, all right? Time's up, wow. So we made something that was very much like TurboTax, and I understand there is a TurboTax in Canada, and we call it A to J Author. This is actually artificial intelligence. It's expert systems. And here's some quick things that we learned. That we can teach people about the law while they're solving their problem. That we want to front load our things with the questions that disqualify them or have them in the wrong place. Don't waste users' time. We want to slow down the process to one question at a time because that actually speeds it up because it maintains their focus. All right? It's been used over 8 million times. We've gotten rave reviews from people. We've collected about 10,000 of these comments, specifically from the New York family courts. And we teach this in schools to law students. Now, it turns out that law students are not good at helping out with this because they are not subject matter experts. But they're good at helping the subject matter experts do the translation into the automated form. And so with that, I'll stop and hand it over to you.
Hello? Great. Okay. Hi, I'm Nora. I'm going to talk about surviving the AI revolution from a PLEI organization perspective. It's not working. Okay. I work for the Justice Education Society. It is a nonprofit organization, 36 years. We do a lot of education programming. We also run a number of legal information websites, and a legal helpline. AI is changing the world. It's definitely changing how people are interacting with plea. It's changing how people are looking for information online. It's changing how people are filling out court forms. Right. So historically, this is for information online. When people were looking for legal information online, they would kind of follow the orange line. They'd go to a Google or a search engine like Google, type in their question. They'd get a bunch of results that are indexed. And if you did like a good job with your SEO, your search engine optimization, you'd hopefully, your website would hopefully be there, hopefully in the top like 10. And then they click into it, they'd go to your website, they'd start reading information. And those websites would be legally reviewed, plain language, with a lot of like energy put into thinking about people's cognitive loads and how they process legal information, trauma-informed, all that. And they'd hopefully get their answer. Now, we're seeing more and more people go to chat interfaces, so like Geminis or ChatGPTs. They ask their question, and then they get an answer. They're not going to your website, so your website is being left out. Hopefully, the chat interface is finding your website and taking that information. But it's also taking hundreds of other websites' information and putting it all together and then spitting out the answer. And that is a change, and it can be scary. AI hasn't really reduced the need for legal information. It's just changed where and how people are encountering that information. And long story short, we're not going to fight how people are finding information. Like, they're going to use ChatGPT. I think a lot of us are using different AI platforms. I did it to research my my trip. You know, like, it's easy. So what can we do to adapt? And we've sort of started to think about this in, 4 strategies of how we're looking at surviving and adapting. Strategy 1 is to try to make AI answers better. And we're trying to do that by, it's hard to juggle with this thing, but create content AI bots will find and use. AI wants to answer, give an answer. If there is no content out there, it's still going to give you an answer and be really, really confident about it. So our job is to make sure that there is good content that they can pull from. There's a number of ways you can do this. It kind of depends where you are. You want to do it on the back end with, still doing search engine optimization, technical stuff with tagging and schema. And we have a session tomorrow for like a whole hour that talks about this. So I'm not going to get into it now. There's also stuff you can do on the content front to make sure that your content is readable by AI. I think how I characterize it is AI is a little bit lazy. And so if you're creating content that it doesn't have to like rework, the more likely it's going to use it. It also does want to find trusted information. So the more trusted you look with people referring to you, with verifiable information on there. So when you're linking to legislation, which we tend not to do, but it can be quite good for AI. That kind of stuff is useful. Our second strategy is using AI internally. I think most of us have started to do this, whether it's writing a proposal or writing reports, or I really hate doing marketing stuff, and I don't speak in marketing language, so AI is really good at that, and I use that for that. I didn't use AI for this PowerPoint, and I hate doing PowerPoints. But tomorrow, our session, we did use AI. We just fed it our branding guidelines, and it spat out something that looked pretty good. Yeah, we still have to work on it, but it'll look a lot better than this. The other thing is that we are investing in AI tools to help increase access to justice. So we've started dabbling with chatbots. We have a chatbot now on our family law website, and we've had it for about 4 months. It's scary good. And as like a lawyer, you're like, whoa, this is really good. It's up to not quite as good as like our legal navigators, but a lot better than law students and a lot better than regular AI bots out there. Yeah, and we introduced this chatbot, but we didn't take away our human service, our Ask Jess service, because I think it's sort of comparing apples and oranges. I think a lot of people are still needing that human touch. It's just different, and there's a place for both. So still maintaining and offering things that AI can't, and then promoting that and publicizing that so AI can find it, and then tell people when they ask AI, hey, I really just need to talk to a human. It'll be like, oh, here are all the human services. And that is, just in summary, the 4 things. And then I kind of left with a Darwin quote about, we need to adapt, not do or die, but still. That's it. That was my 6.5 minutes.
Hi, everyone. My name's Sarah. I'm the Director of System and Technology Design for Innovation for Justice at the University of Arizona and the University of Utah. And for the past 6 years, I have been working with courts and legal service providers and communities to evaluate and redesign and design from the ground up a wide variety of legal tools. And what was really interesting is, as part of this work, is even though I'm working on different legal problems and different legal tools, the pain points are often very similar. And so I started to think, is there a way to create a design framework that could work for any legal tool to make it easier for anybody to use? So that's what I've been working on. And you can see the 3 core principles here in front of you. We all know there's a lot of pressure to digitize right now. Courts are moving online, legal services are moving online, and that's really good because it can expand access. But it's also a dangerous territory when we rush online. We risk taking barriers that already exist and just digitizing them. Sometimes adding a layer of technology makes it even worse, right? I think we all know the problems. So. When bad design exists in commercial apps, we find it mildly annoying or we go somewhere else. We don't have that luxury with legal tech most of the time. And so bad design can mean somebody loses their home, somebody loses their child, somebody loses their life even potentially. So the stakes are very, very high in design. So I've been working on this framework, like I said, to make it easier for people to design legal tech tools in a way that will work for people in crisis. So let's see, hey, look at that. I think responsible legal tech design sits at the intersection of these 3 principles: designing for ease, which is about focusing on making the technology as easy to use as possible; designing for understanding, which is about making the content as easy to access, understand, and act upon as possible; and designing for well-being, which is about making the experience centered on actual user needs and making the experience feel as safe and empowering as possible. So why I think this framework is really powerful is that it's empowering to the makers of technology as well as those using it, because it gives us a shared framework, a shared vocabulary, and a practical roadmap for problem solving. It's engaging because it involves working with the community to design something that works for actual needs. And it's efficient because the 3 principles are interrelated. So when you improve in one area, you automatically improve in some other areas as well. And if I have time, I'll go into that. So just a quick overview, I guess, of everything. Design for ease is really about, when people are coming to our online technologies, they're already facing a hardship, and we don't want the actual use of technology to add to their difficulties. So designing for ease is really about making the technology itself as easy to use as possible. These best practices you see below there are the 10 usability heuristics, which are grounded in decades of research into best practices for user interface design. And what this looks like in practice when you're applying these best practices, it's things like process bars and indicators so people know how many steps there are left on the form or the process. Clear confirmation screens so people know an action took place and what to expect next. Familiar language and icons, back and cancel buttons if you went somewhere you didn't mean to. You don't have to go through a whole process to go back. Simple instructions when an error is made. 404 doesn't help anybody. Tell us what happened and how to undo it and make it better. And timely and contextual help integrated into actual user flows so we can anticipate people's questions and needs and address them maybe even before they know they have them so they don't have to break their user flow and can complete their tasks more easily. These are nice to haves. These are what we all expect from our online experiences these days, and they can make a huge difference in our legal technologies as far as people getting the help that they need. My second principle, design for understanding. Most of our people coming to our legal sites and tools are not trained in the law, and most of us creating the content for these tools are. And so it's really important for us to spend particular efforts making the information not just available, but accessible, understandable, and actionable. So these principles here are based in content design and inclusive design best practices. They probably look familiar to many of you, and I know I'm short of time, so I will zip through this, but plain language, voice and tone is something that's often forgotten when we talk about plain language, but making things really welcoming to people makes a huge difference. Clear information hierarchy, I'll talk a little bit more about this in a little bit, but people read differently online, and we really need to adapt how we present information to make it easier for them to seek and find what they're looking for and take action on it. If you're not designing for mobile at this point, you're missing a lot of people who are looking for your help. So I do most of my projects at this point, mobile first design. And language access and accessibility compliance, obviously this includes things like translated content, and screen readers and keyboard navigations, making sure, these principles are not about making anything pretty, they're about making the information accessible, understandable, and actionable for everyone. And finally, design for well-being. This one is the newest layer for me because so many people coming to our tools are in a state of crisis. So we need to pay more attention than just to how the technology works and how the information is presented. We actually need to design with care. And so this extra layer is based in trauma-informed design principles, and it helps guide us through decisions about things like talking about safety and privacy, not just about when they're on the website, but about the entire process. How is safety and privacy affected, and what should people be aware of? Being clear about legal processes. I thought I had 9 minutes. I'm not sure what happened. Sorry, everyone. Happy to talk more about all these things. But these are, again, it's not about making things feel nice. It's about making it possible for people to stay engaged in a process when their circumstances and the system itself feels really overwhelming. So, I didn't get to go through all of them, but the one that I really wanted to focus on today was collaboration, that understanding these design principles is really helpful, and you can actually just, when you start to get a sense of them, everything around you, you start seeing in design principles, which for better or for worse, but you can take a look at your technology, you can see areas where you can improve right away, and it's really tempting just to go ahead and make changes based on these research-based design best practices. But you're really missing out on the collaboration piece, which is absolutely essential for making any technology work as well as it can for the people that you are serving. And I say this with experience, having worked with a dozen different states, different projects, different technologies. Even though the pain points are the same, the solutions change based on the community's needs. So Community engaged research and co-design is really, really important. You can sit down with people and ask them to walk through the technology with you just to get a sense of what their experience is and what you expect them to do and what they're actually experiencing as you're observing them. That's where the work begins. That's where we start to see opportunities for improvement. And I'll just really quickly last mention that I know that tech projects can feel really overwhelming, that there is a lot of there's a lot of things to think about. I just threw a bunch of best practices at you on top of it. You might not have many resources. You might have a lot of pressure to move quickly. But what I want you to take away from this is that these design best practices are really powerful because you can make a change with one, and there's a ripple effect where it affects all the other not all of them, but many other best practices as well. And so what happens is, rather than hearing a bunch of feedback from your community that you may not know what to do with because somebody says, I don't know what the next step is, and somebody says, I think a lawyer needs to file that, and a third person says, shouldn't there be a red button here? Like, that seems sort of meaningless, but once you have the framework of design principles to look at this through, you might realize, oh, they're all talking about visibility of system status, and all we have to do is address this one issue. It will solve these problems in front of us and also probably have a positive ripple effect on other best practices as well. Okay, I will leave it there, even though I usually teach a semester-long course on this, so 6 minutes was tough for me, obviously, but thank you for sticking with me on that, and happy to answer more questions.
So, I'm actually going to suggest that when we've got a couple of questions, and I'm going to start with you first, Sarah. So if you feel like you can sort of bring in the collaboration piece in this one too, feel free to do that. We'll go from Sarah, Nora, back to John, and then if we have time enough, we'll go back in the same way. So, Sarah, this one's for you. What is something that people struggle with when they're first learning about and trying to apply an ethical tech design framework? Can you give us some insights there?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing people typically ask for is that they want a checklist rather than a framework. They would like me to tell them exactly which design changes should be applied under each of these best practices, and check, 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 we got it, great. And I'm so sorry to tell you that that is not possible. That checklists are just too narrow and prescriptive, and we need to use the framework because it's much, much more flexible. Design solutions that would work for safety, for, say, a civil protection order portal would probably not work well for a probate chatbot, and vice versa. And so everything depends on, the issue, the legal problem, and the technology, as well as the community's needs. The framework is not, you need to hit all of these things all of the time. It's there to help you identify what issues really are standing out in your community and what you can focus on to have the biggest impact on the redesign.
I'll bring it over to Nora next. You kind of alluded to this in your presentation as well too, but where our PLEI content is relevant, are there innovative but low-cost strategies for getting our sites profiled on AI platforms?
I think it really depends where you're at. Like, where are you on your SEOs? Have you done all the work to make it really good? Have you kept up to date? If you haven't, that's a good place to start. Same, I think we've heard this, I've been to a couple of the AI sessions as well, and content is king. So if you don't have really good content, it's that if there's gaps in your content, it's not up to date, that's where I would focus. Also setting up metrics so that you can measure it and know what's going on. But assuming all of that, and those are all best practices that have been around for a while, and assuming that's all good, I would start sort of, I'm not the techie person, but finding someone who's techie. It doesn't have to necessarily be a developer, but start looking into the back end side of things of tags and schemas. And then on the more front side, the content side, we're in an era of like quick, snappy, fast information. So making your content updated, like the more current it is, the better it is. So doing more updates. And you can do this, like, it's really hard because, you know, if you have a small claims website and the settlement conference information is the same, it hasn't changed. What are you updating? So you can do it like the way that we've kind of tried to do it is start with like FAQs. I could change those FAQs as much as I want, right? And so every like couple of months we change an FAQ on that site. Now it's picking it up. Oh, we have new stuff. We like new stuff. So that's sort of, there's more tips, but that's the short.
Great. And then over to you, John. I mean, guided interviews are based on decision tree frameworks, and you know, as a tool itself, as generative AI becomes more common in legal services and support, smaller organizations may wonder why they should invest in guided interview tools rather than AI-based solutions. I'm curious if you can elaborate on how A to J author and guided interviews in general are different from AI-driven tools, and when is it maybe the better choice?
Sure. Testing. So the answer, the problem is the answer. An awful lot of law or awful lot of advice that people give to, or guidance that you give to clients or the public is the same all the time, right? If you get an eviction letter, here's your options. Is it, you know, where are you? Oh, here. It is a tree, even if it's just in our heads. We're basically, we might ask a few questions. Oh, or do you fall into this category, this category, or this category? And anybody who's been working in an area for a while has developed these trees and almost can get kind of sing-song about how they respond to it. It's, you know, always, though, keeping careful that they're listening for, is this an edge case? Is this something that doesn't fit the tree and falls out? It's a branch that I haven't dealt with. So I think it's a power law, right? 80, 90% are going to fall into this. They just need this information. They need to fill out this form. That's the solution to what they're doing. And they may not even have to talk to somebody about that. They can go to a website that says, do you have this problem? Yes. Follow this path. We will give you the thing that you want, which will give you the paper that is the magical incantation that the judge is looking for, and at which point, you know, your problem gets evaluated or adjudicated. So for an awful lot of legal problems, what I call low-hanging fruit, document automation or decision trees are absolutely the way to go. If you were to just simply ask Gen AI, solve my problem for me, it would have to ask you a bunch of questions to clarify, to give you a sufficiently detailed answer. And so you're right back into a decision tree just being generated real time. Now, I really love what Clio's doing, because there are parts of a decision tree that lead to, well, we need a statement from the client. Like, we need, tell me what happened, whether it's, you know, whatever the situation is. And you can just give them a blank box and they start typing, and judges know what those look like, right? People tell you all their problems since the beginning of time, and they have to ferret out what's relevant to the case. So Clio has broken that down into, why don't we ask them some questions about it that are relevant to this, and then we'll take those and we'll generate the text, and then we'll show it to them and say, does this sound like what happened to you? And they'll be like, yeah, that's pretty good. And you've sort of sidestepped the fact that, now, don't get me wrong. It's better if people with trauma get to talk about their problems to somebody. And I'm not talking about not giving them that opportunity, but this is a situation where they don't have that opportunity. It's 2 o'clock in the morning and they got a problem they need to solve by the next day, and there's a website that basically says we might be able to help you a little bit. So it's always conditional or positional or whatever, contextual, I guess.
Fair enough. I'm going to work my way back to Nora. That way you can just keep handing the mic back and forth. Nora, in the work that you're doing with JES, have you thought a little bit about evaluation and measurement? How can we measure our impact in this new AI era?
Impact is always hard. I just went to a really good session today on impact, actually. And I would argue that I know a lot of us have done this, and I've done this before, where we report on traffic. Traffic isn't really a good indication of impact. Yeah, they came to the site, like, so what? And then I guess the question is, why are we measuring impact? So if you're measuring impact for yourself to make your programs better, then you can do like a lot of different things. It's of a website. You can do surveys. You can do like isolated user testing. You can like talk to a lot of intermediaries. I find a lot of good information comes from them of like, hey, you're using this site. What are you finding? How is it working? What's missing? Adapting. We're lucky we have our like helpline and our Ask Jess on our websites. So we get a lot of information of what people are asking. And so we can adapt our content to what they actually want. And even like the AI that we introduced, we've made, I don't know, 40, 50 changes in the last 4 months just because, oh, that answer isn't really good. Why isn't it that good? You go and you look and you're like, oh, it's pulling information from this page. Okay, it's about protection orders. Well, this person actually needed more information on P-Spawn. I know it's on that website, but it's over here. But you know, if you're on the person, if the bot is on that page, a person is going to be on that page and could use a little bit of information that's there. So you just add it in. So you can make your content better through evaluation. And if it's for funders, then I would kind of treat it like I would treat helping someone with a legal need, where it's like, what do you want? You've got this, you want something, like I would have a conversation with the funders. You know, some funders want, they care about qualitative or they're really focused on quantitative. But I just sort of pick up the phone and I'm like, well, this is my problem. My traffic sites are down, like the traffic on the sites are down. This is why it's down. How would you like me to address this? What can I do? What kind of information can I give you? And then I just adapt for that funder. I just try to please people, so it depends.
And I will pass this one over to Sarah. I appreciate no checklists, but when you look at a new tech tool, are there indicators that an ethical design framework has been used by the developer? Is there anything that sort of indicates or shows that?
So we all know what things look like when they aren't designed well. That really jumps out at us in our annoyance and frustration. When things are designed well, we often don't notice. You know, there's not that friction there, and so it just becomes an intuitive experience. And so not noticing is actually a good thing in this respect. What's kind of funny about that is when we are doing usability testing and we're doing iterative design and we're improving the design each time based on feedback and it's getting better and better, we'll hit a point where people almost think that we're joking with them. We give them a scenario and they just like do it real quick and they're like, I mean, I just did that. It was just really easy. Obviously this button or this information here. And so we know we've hit it at that point when they think it's so obvious they're not sure why we're asking that question anymore. That's when we stop asking that question for usability testing. But yeah, good design is complicated in that it is hard to notice unless you train yourself specifically to look for signs of good design. So when you're hearing good feedback, you're hearing that things were easy or they were exactly where people expected them to be, or it was pleasantly, surprisingly easier than they expected, particularly where something that they were anticipating would be really difficult, that's when you know you've gotten to a place of good design.
Fair enough. And I do want to make sure we leave enough time for questions from the audience, but I'm going to throw one more question to you, John. No, you can answer it in your own time. For organizations that are starting out or contemplating the possibility of doing something in a guided interview format. What design process do you recommend? Like, we're talking about translating very, complex legal or service processes. How do you do that into an effective guided interview? Any recommendations or best practices or?
Oh, God, yeah. So how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So there's nothing complex. It's only the next bite. I'm going to throw like real high tech at you and basically say the thing that I love best for doing designing processes is multicolored Post-it notes.
Here.
I mean, we've played around with things like mind map and free mind.
Yeah.
And the problem was what happens is you get caught up in the mechanism and the features of the tool. Oh no, let's make it chartreuse or pink or yellow. It's like, oh my gosh, get to work.
Gold fashioned.
So it's the other thing. So once you've got the Post-it notes, you basically every piece of data you need from somebody goes on a Post-it note, and then you can start gathering them into, like, well, we want to ask their first and last name on the same screen, sort of thing. Those are obvious. But then you start to run into two big things that we learned. The number one thing is quite often people show up and they're in the wrong place because the guidance that got them was bad or wrong, or they're new to it. So front load your questions with, are you in the right place? Are you eligible, or do you qualify for whatever it is I'm about to spend a half hour or an hour asking you about? Because if they're not, you want to get them out fast and say, oh, no, you should be over here, right? There's nothing more frustrating than finishing an hour-long process and saying, oh, you don't qualify. What? Start off with that. Second thing is you have to unpack things that are perfectly obvious to us college-educated people. How much money do you make? That's a simple question, right? For some people. But for purposes of a court forum, that might also mean, do you get veteran benefits? Are you taking care of people that aren't your children? Are you also taking care of elderly who aren't your parents or directly related to you? Do you get SNAP benefits? All those sorts of things, you got to unpack that. And because it has to be accurate, because this is a court declaration or part of an application process, you want to do it with some precision. And then you even have to decide how much precision do you really want to put in it. And if it's really important, you might want to ask a complicated question multiple ways, because they might have misunderstood it the first way you put it. So you ask them this, you go on and you say, hey, you said that this. Does that mean you meant this? And if they're like, no, well, then you got to go into a loop that basically explains, okay, common misunderstandings happen on this issue, right? And the people who know about common misunderstandings are the people who have lived in a space where a particular legal topic is being explored, and that's your subject matter experts. So there's nobody better to do the design with the Post-it notes, which is not high technology, than the lawyers or the legal aid people or the community justice workers who have experienced that. And even better would be if you had a real self-represented litigant in the room too. Right?
All right, I think we still have at least 10 minutes left. So I'm going to throw it open to the room. We've got a couple of standing mics, and if we have any more floating mics around, happy to bring those to people too. But does anybody want to get us started off with questions? Go ahead, Patricia. Do you mind heading up to the mic?
Sarah, I wonder if you have any thoughts with respect to the amount of content, information to put on a website. Here's what I mean by that. With respect to some chatbot answers coming out to a person, or with respect to how to describe a particular situation and what to do. I've heard criticisms from lawyers from time to time that that's not enough content. If that person seeking that type of information were to be my client, I would tell them about much more. We understand that a layperson, so-called layperson, can only absorb so much information, especially when they're stressed out. And So I wonder if you have any thoughts, guidelines, good ammunition for me to respond to that type of criticism.
I always have thoughts. Yes, that's a great question, and it does come up a lot in this area. And I think what I respond to often is it's not necessarily the amount of information, it's the way that we're presenting that information. And so information architecture, which was one of the, information hierarchy, which is one of the best practices under understanding I mentioned, talks about how to actually present that information in a way that is both comprehensive and hopefully pleasing to your legal minds, but also digestible enough for the folks who are coming to understand that information. And so that involves things like, short page titles, descriptive subtitles, clear headings going down the page, each paragraph being limited to one thought at a time, so it's a little more easy to understand, bullet points, lists, numbered next steps, timelines, really just breaking that information down in a way that somebody can scan, seek the precise information that they need in that moment, and make informed decisions and move forward. And that may involve, oh, there's more information, interesting, I want to continue down this route. In the lawyerly, let me give you all the information, but they may also want to stop and do it one step at a time. And so giving them the option to have both is really kind of ideally the best way to do it, or the best approach I would go with. But a wall of gray goo is always really, really hard to take action on. I hope that was enough ammo.
Thanks so much, Sarah. I can see Chris is coming over with a question as well, too. Go ahead.
Also for Sarah, I wanted to ask, most people probably aren't doing user testing, or would like to, know they should, but aren't doing it. And I know you know Jacob Nielsen, he's written about usability testing for 30 years, and now he's saying you can get the AI to do it for you. Now, right? And really saying you can use the frontier stuff to analyze a site and pretend it's a person. I wonder if there's an opportunity, or if you guys have tried that with your class or your students, and how effective that's been so far, and do you see any future for the getting discount usability testing for everybody in the room?
Thank you. Yes, this is a new topic I've gotten everybody at Twitter in the UX world. I have not tried it, so that's the short answer. My concerns about it are that in concept, yes, I think that idea is possible someday in the future. The limitations I see of it are that it has the assumption that AI is able to pull all of the information about real community needs, pain points, etc. And I'm not sure that that information exists out there in sufficient quantity and sufficient format for this to actually work right now. One of the things about doing usability testing in community interviews, we do a lot of interviews as well to understand kind of the problems and pain points across the system, is that you're discovering things that are kind of known to the community, but not really surfaced to anybody outside of it. And so that's really the power of the community engaged research, is that you are literally surfacing insights that you can use to apply to solve real problems. And I'm just worried that those insights haven't been surfaced sufficiently for AI to do that same sort of work yet.
I would add expert's bias.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely,
You
yeah.
know the problem, and so you skip over stuff as you're looking at your own tool. The reason why you do discount user testing, pull in anybody off the street and say, run through this and watch them mess with it, you're like, oh my gosh, I skipped over that part. So is to surface your own biases.
Good question. Any other? Oh, Julie, go ahead.
My question My question is for Nora. So you talked a little bit about SEO, and well, you talked about AI, good practices for getting content profiled through AI. So how do the practices for getting content profiled through AI systems, how do those differ from SEO practices through search engines, traditional search engines? So you do something else to get your content profiled through AI systems?
I'm not an expert, but my understanding is that there is sort of a overlap, like if we think of like a Venn diagram. So it'll get you pretty far if you, like the SEO stuff counts, but then there's some extra things. And that keeps evolving. Like the AI is moving really, really fast. So we're trying to keep up with it. And we're like, oh, now we got to do these tagging things and identify like, oh, that's an FAQ. And that's where it tells us where when it was last updated. So there's like a specific tag where SEO had a different thing that I was more concerned about. So yes, there's extra. And you would need to talk to like a tech person that understands that. But as like a lay person, you're like, hey, I understand we need to do this. You explain it to me, yeah.
Any other questions? I think we might have space for one more before we have to wrap up today. And if we don't, I might just give Sarah a bit back. You didn't get a chance to really talk about the collaboration part, and I do think it actually is quite important. So if you do want to say a few words about that, I don't think that's a bad use of our time.
Sure. Trying to remember where I was when I said that.
In fact, if you don't mind going back to that slide, would you be able to go back to it was on the best practices slide, wasn't it?
I'm not, yeah. Okay.
Oh, sorry. They'll give us a moment. They're going to bring it back.
I just pushed too many buttons. What I was saying was, what's really powerful about the framework is it gives you the shared vocabulary, it gives you a sort of a roadmap for solving problems once you've identified them. But the community engaged piece, it's not a replacement for the community engaged piece. So right now I have collaboration on there. It's sort of the same weight as all the other ones, but it kind of shouldn't be. It should be a giant collaboration on the bottom there, because the framework really doesn't work well to target your particular community's needs without actually talking to your community members. And I'm just going to say, AI aside, really talking to real humans is still, I think, the best way to do this. So we can't, or we shouldn't design for people without designing with them, because exactly, as was stated already, we have the curse of knowledge. We already know things, and it's almost impossible to unknow something once you know it. And so we need to go talk to actual people to see how they use things and understand all of those assumptions that we've made as part of building the technology. So as I mentioned, what's powerful about the collaboration in context with the framework is doing usability testing or interviews. You gather an immense amount of qualitative data. You have to analyze it. We do affinity diagramming. We're looking for themes. We're surfacing trends. We're looking for patterns. We're clustering. We're identifying patterns, and we're surfacing insights, and it's a lot. It's always my students' most overwhelming week. And it can be really hard when you're seeing all of these complaints that feel just overwhelming. There's such a wide variety of information that people are having challenges with. But when you have this understanding of design best practices, you can really hone in on that feedback in a much more productive way to find those patterns and realize, oh, there's a simple solution here. It sounds like there's a lot of things going wrong, but really it's just a couple of key design best practices that we can address to make better. We know exactly what to fix at that point. So that shared vocabulary, that shared understanding of pain points, being able to talk across an entire partnership team. I'm usually working with courts, legal service providers, community advocates, community-based organizations, lived experience experts, all of us being able to use a similar shared vocabulary to talk about the pain points and the solutions is really, really powerful. So, those design best practices are great, but it's most effective when you're using them to listen and to respond to the needs of actual people in your community. So, if I have one more minute, I'll give that information hierarchy example I was going to give because I keep talking about this ripple effect. But you don't have to fix everything all at once to have a real impact. So if you fix information architecture, information hierarchy, you have clear page titles, you have descriptive subtitles, you have clear headings, you have bullet points, you have numbered next steps, you have a bunch of information that's much easier to scan, and suddenly the page feels clearer and calmer, which helps with your aesthetic and minimalist design. It improves your plain language because you're forced to really pick your words to make those clear headings when you present the information in a clear and simple way. It improves trust and trustworthiness and transparency because the process has automatically been made clearer. It improves empowerment, voice, and choice because suddenly it's easier for people to identify the information that they're looking for and to know what next steps they should make. And improves accessibility because screen readers rely on structure in order to make information easy to understand. And so one targeted improvement, your organization could say, that's it. Information hierarchy is really our problem. We're going to focus on this. Suddenly you've already addressed a bunch of other issues, secondary issues. So that's really what's powerful about the combination of community engaged research and having a design framework laid over it.
Well, that seems like a good place. It seems to be a good place to end up. And I would just like to say that although this is the last day that we're going to be here at the Westin, we do have another day of programming tomorrow that we're taking to Ottawa University, and a plug because Nora and her team at Just Education Society is going to be giving a workshop there where they're going to go a little bit more in depth into some of the issues that she raised today, and we'll have a number of other panels that are going to be, other presentations and workshops that are going to be talking about data and use of technology as well too. So if you're interested, make sure to join us. The information is on our conference website. And I think given that we're close to wrapping up, I'm going to ask Jeff Surtees, PLIAC's current president, to come up and end the day for us. Thank you so much to our panelists for joining us. Let's give a round of applause.
Thanks, everybody. This is like, I grew up playing in rock bands, and this is the tag set at the end of the night when everybody's really tired and waiting for cabs, and, in those days, possibly a little drunk. I'm sure nobody hears that, though. I'm Jeff. I'm from the Center for Public Legal Education in Alberta, and as Jess mentioned, I'm the current president of PLIAC. And I want to begin with a few very heartfelt thank yous. This conference was, and there's sort of two parts to it. A lot of people are leaving today, and that's why I'm doing this wrap-up. This was a joint presentation of PLIAC and CLIO and OGEN. CLIO and OGEN really lent their muscle to this, and the leadership of all of the organizations has asked me to only single out one person for thank you, and that's the mighty Hannah Holmes, who did basically all the work to make this run smoothly. So thank you very much, Hannah. I also want to thank everyone who presented on a panel or a workshop or a spotlight event. We know that everybody's very busy, and those doing that kind of work takes an awful lot of time, and we really appreciate you doing it. I'd like to thank the funders of all of the organizations that everybody works for, and especially the Ontario Law Foundation and Justice Canada, who really made the last couple of days possible. And I want to thank all of you, everyone here, for showing up, lending your time, and it's always humbling to be in a room with a group of people who so capably give of themselves to make the world a better place. Last night I asked ChatGPT to create a little speech for me today. It was like 25 minutes long, so I'm not going to do that one. But the conference set out to explore how we innovate in a time of change, and I think we really did that. Just listening to the conversations around the tables, out in the big hallway, eating cookies, the things that people were talking about. I think if we did one thing, we decided that the rule of law is probably a good thing. Like, I don't know, I think we can all agree on that. None of us are so naive to believe that understanding a little bit of law is going to fix every problem in the world, but it does make the world a better place. It empowers people, and that's where public legal education fits in. And we are all doing good work, and I hope you all enjoyed the workshops, and the spotlight sessions, and the plenaries over the last couple of days. We really had the opportunity to learn about work being done by everybody across the country and the connections between us all. We're all doing different jobs, but there's so many things that we face that are the same in places. There's connections between our organizations, connections between different disciplines, and most importantly, and that's where these events are so wonderful, connections between people who cared so deeply about access to justice. So, at its core, public legal education is about people, not just information, but impact, not just resources. We had a famous lawyer in Alberta who used to call it pamphlet law. She said, yeah, you guys do pamphlet law. It's more than that now. It's about people. It's about relationships. And so, safe travels home for those that are leaving. Stay connected. And again, thank you all for all that you do.